When you have the curiosity, you're able to put yourself out the picture. And everyone's problems these days is putting themselves too much in the picture of everyone's business, of everyone's childhood, of everyone's trauma. You're not a part of it. I don't know about you, but I've gotten into that victim role in my ex relationship now. And I remember so vividly a moment where I was like, Grace, this is not you.
Alrighty. Well, it's really a pleasure having the opportunity to talk to people from all walks of life, all over the world. We have Grace Grossmann from Germany. Thank you so much for joining me. And I know you're a completely different time zone, and I appreciate you adjusting. Welcome on.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much again for making the time. I did want to chat about a lot of things with you. I do want to start with what it was like for you growing up. I like to kind of look at what childhood's like for people, and we follow, like we chatted about before, we follow people's paths and just try to see where they what makes people who they are, and what makes them pick their paths. I know you have quite a bit of experience with being a teacher and yoga, if I'm not mistaken, being a yoga instructor, and so I'm just curious what leads you down that route. So if you don't mind, what was it like for you growing up? What was young Grace like?
Young Grace was a very attentive listener. She was very shy. Wouldn't really say so much, which is funny because now I'm the complete opposite. But yeah, when I think back to my younger self, I kept the quiet. I kept the peace. A lot of people around me were maybe louder and took up more space. So that's been a massive factor now in my adulthood, taking up space. And being worthy of that, of course. And yeah, the younger Grace was very reflective already. I journaled and wrote all the time as a kid. I was reading, if not writing. I have an older sister 10 years older than me, so we never hung out, I felt like I was more of an only child. And so I was very imaginative, had a lot of those friends kind of things, and games and playing. I mean, that's the beauty of being a child, that you can lose yourself in the power of imagination.
Right.
And yeah, she helped people without even knowing that she was helping people. So that's definitely what led me to being a healer, because I think I've always actually been healing people unsubconsciously, and leading them to the right direction, and then truly tapping into that power now. And like you say, connecting it with your inner child and childhood is wow. It's crazy how many connections there are, isn't there?
Yeah, you mentioned something that stood out to me. You said that you were the peacekeeper. So how many siblings did you have?
I only had that one sister, 10 years old. Yeah, but she was a crazy character. She did a lot of crazy things and took up more of the attention. So I was the one that was, let's put it that way. It was like she was the devil, I was the angel, and I was into the standard of just keeping quiet and being good. Going to church with my parents every Sunday, sticking to these routines that serve me still to this day in that sense, even though I don't go to church anymore, but my spirituality and belief in God. But she was the one that went off the rails, and I was the one that stayed on the rails, if simply put. And that's hence why I said I had a lot of imagination and time creation, because I didn't have siblings. I wasn't, I had my sister. I don't want to put her out of the picture, but you know what I mean? That 10 years makes a massive difference.
Right.
So yeah, hence why
so in some way you were pretty much an only child in some way. Yeah. For example, friend groups. I'll give you an example for me with my brothers. I had 3 older brothers and 1 older sister, 1 younger sister. And so the closest in age between the siblings was myself and my older brother, who were about a little less than 2 years, 1 year and 9 months apart. And so we were close enough that in age in which we went to similar grade schools. So for example, we went to when we went to middle school, which is our junior high, I don't know what they call it anywhere else, but the years between just before you get to high school is we call middle school or junior high, and that's between ages of 12 to 10 10 to 11 to like 14 or 13, something like that. And then you go into high school. And so we were close enough in age where you could kind of, we could kind of follow each other into like those schools. So I wasn't far behind him. And then we had, I knew his friends knew me. And so when there's that kind of closeness, you kind of do experience similar environments. And so there's that kind of companionship in that way. And so when you don't have that, like my younger sister is 9 years younger than me.
So you get it a bit, yeah.
Yep. So well, I get that it would be, she'd likely be in your shoes, that, you know, I was much older than her. And so we didn't really share the same teachers or the same, like my brother and I had a lot of the same teachers. They knew me because they knew my brother. Like, oh yeah, I had your brother. You know, I was your brother's teacher. So she didn't get much of that. And so in some ways, even though she has many siblings, she was kind of an only child. And so, yeah, that changes the experience. So let me ask you then, what did you get to observe from your older sister? I know for me, I saw my older siblings make a lot of mistakes, and I was the fifth of six. So I got to witness a lot of mistakes happen. And for me, that kind of like made me, ooh, I don't want to do that. Did you get to experience any of that growing up?
It's interesting you say it like that it kind of pushed you in the other direction of not wanting to do that. But maybe that's the difference. You had 5 examples. I only had 1.
Yeah, fair.
And because it was such a big age gap, and because she took up so much attention from my parents in that sense, I was like, oh, I want to be like that. I mean, we do basically do that with our like siblings, I guess. Yep. Anyway, like we see them as role models. And yeah, I mean, I then dabbled with like partying and drugs and drinking. And I would say now in hindsight, when we want to dive into this topic, it's definitely to do with her as well, right? Like you want to follow in their footsteps in that sense. But yeah, challenging in that sense when you think about it. If as a child, you're looking up to this person that maybe is making those mistakes, but you don't really know that they're mistakes, do you? Because you then learn that only when you grow up. I knew though, thinking about it though, I knew that she was making mistakes because my parents would always shout at her. Like there was always something wrong in that sense. So yeah, but it's still, I mean, you're familiar with this too, right? Like when you're younger, if someone's doing something wrong, then you kind of want to do it too because it's like cool. So yeah, I wanted to have house parties too, and you know, like go down that route of exploration, but not to that extent, let's say.
Rebellion is a good is a good word for it. I had my phase of it just because I didn't follow in my brother's or my older siblings' mistakes. I made my own, and for me, joining the military was where that kind of came out. That rebellion, because there's a consequence. There's an opposite to wanting to be like a goody two shoes, for the lack of better words, for being like the perfectionist and wanting to be the perfect child. There's the opposite. There's an opposite pole that's going to happen at some point, and it did for me when I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Was there was this inner like feeling of invincibility. It's like, whoa. When you accomplish something like that, it kind of feels like I'm untouchable and I can do anything. And it has some good things to it. I drew some good lessons from that. But then there's the mistakes of how did I treat people? When I was younger, you could ask my close friends. There was a lot of interactions where they told me like, yeah, man, we have to question whether or not we want to still be friends with you. And that's just because there's this like, there was just this opposite thing that I've been kind of pushing down. Of everybody has that rebellious rebellion in them. It's just how do you engage with it when it does surface? And for some people, it's very loud. For some people, it's kind of in being passive aggressive. Maybe it manifests in different ways. But for me, it was just like, I'm going to be this perfect kid, but then all of a sudden I accomplished. That's because I felt smaller, right? Once I accomplished something, then it was like, whoa, look at me now, and that comes with consequences. So just because I didn't when I was a kid, I didn't make a lot of the same mistakes my siblings did. I made my own, and that was where it finally came if you push down enough of your real feelings, they'll come out at some point, and that's where it came out for me. So I just wanted to make that point that definitely does happen, even in people who are like perfectionists and don't make a lot of mistakes as kids. So it just delayed it. Can I ask you about your parents? How strict were your parents?
Yeah, good question. Because I feel like because they really tried with my sister and it didn't work, they were more like relaxed and trusting in me. And also because I showed them I had faith in God as well, and in our Christianity, like, you know, and because I was in a Christian household, that I was genuinely very enthusiastic about it. And, you know, but like you just said, that rebellion, of course, came up out of me at some point, because you have to have the bad and the good. You have to have the night and the day, right? Like, it's all about that. Yeah, and it's exploration. Like, you have to go through phases of exploration during your life. And you know, that teenage phase, right? Like, more hormones, more changes. And I think that's when it came out for me, because my best friend, he juggled a lot with drugs and really struggled, actually. But in that sense, I'm fortunate that I didn't go down that route. Like, I don't know if you're familiar, but in England, I would say the drug culture is very big. In the young culture, I mean, if you just see series like Skins, for example, like, you just see it. And so, yeah, we do drink young, and we do, you know, kind of go out in that sense. But I think I touched it, but I wasn't like, I was disciplined in that sense, because not because of my parents, but I think because actually what's interesting, because they trusted me more. And I felt that. And so I knew that I had my limits. Does that make sense?
Why do you think they trusted you more?
Because I took our religion seriously.
Oh, because of okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and because of my character. Yeah.
Your sister wasn't a churchgoer? No.
Complete opposite. Like, true, like, kind of rebellion. I do my stuff, and yeah, I mean, now if I think about it in hindsight, very ego-centered. And I've always been that empath. I've always really looked out for others. I don't want to put a bad light on that. It's hard sometimes, isn't it, to talk about your family? But yeah, I think that just came more natural.
Right.
To me. Yeah.
Right. No, and I will say, well, I was raised Catholic. But for me, with religion, I've become more spiritual later in my life. So for me, I would say it's hard to say that I don't think I'm religious. I think that I'm spiritual. When I was young, I was baptized. I did my first communion, and so, like, for a while I was into religion, and I finally asked my mom one time, "Hey, why are you religious?" Right? Like, what kids do at some point is like, why do we do this? Why do we go to church? Why do we do all that?
Yeah.
And my mom was like, well, I don't know. That's just kind of how we were raised, and you know, what was expected. And so that's where I started asking questions, where it's like, well, you know, if you don't know, you know, then what's going on here? You know, what if I start asking questions? And that's where you get who I am today. Is it started when I was younger. This had a lot of questions that I dared to ask, and then it took me down a different route for a while. I would have called myself agnostic maybe like 4 years ago, and but over time I've just I've felt a greater connection with other people once I've started to heal, and that's where the spirituality kind of creeped in, where it's like it does feel as though we are connected in more ways than we understand. And so the curiosity allowed me to be spiritual, but that came with healing. So but for you said it came on more natural. You've kind of had it since you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I would say because I always nurtured my relationship with God. So whatever you want to call it, like the higher consciousness, infinite intelligence,
sure.
You know, that state of love, joy, and gratitude. And when I just mentioned my best friend, him passing away at 21 was my big start, let's say, to my true healing journey, I really helped him a lot to come off drugs, to come off, like to just, I really gave him my all in that sense. So I did feel a lot of like guilt. But that's where also my self-help book came from, in that grieving process of him, to honor him and to help people with my, with my state of mind that I do really feel comes from that love of God within me. So yeah, it's funny you say that, because maybe it was really always in me, that light of also taking that space when I was younger, of the shy one and the one that listened and was very attentive, that I now know how I can read people so well. because of how I was as a child. Like my mum spoke a lot, so I would always have to be the one waiting, and the one that was just always listening and like yeah. And so I really now know how I'm such a good healer and coach, because I really can tap into that awareness of people and what they need, and you don't even need to tell me, like I can tell you in that sense. And it's so funny that you yourself and this podcast and all you do too, because our childhood is so impactful on who we are now. It's really that foundation of who we are. And when you really tap into that, right, like, and you dig into it, it just gives you all the answers of the forgiveness of who, of all of those layers that you can peel back. And that's something I've only really done in the past few years, I have to say. But yeah, I would agree with you that I wouldn't really call myself religious, because there's a whole, horrible bias around that too, right? In our world of war.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that was also, like you were saying, when you're younger and you have all those questions, definitely I did too. And then I was like, but God doesn't want me to not like my sister just because she's gay, and my parents like that. Like that I question a lot. And I could see the shame in my mum with that. And I was like, but God says that we should love everyone like equally, So I did question all like stuff like that came up in our family situations. So it's funny, because that curiosity doesn't ever leave you, does it?
I've had to rediscover curiosity. I wasn't curious for a long time. I would say that when I was in my teenage years was when my curiosity went away, and there was just this black and whiteness to life for a long time, of like, well, this is the way this works, and this is the way that works, and any other way, it's either this way or it's that way. And that form of thinking is also super restraining on your ability to grow. For me, that's why, I don't know if you've noticed, for me, when as I've seen a lot of my family members get older, you notice like a stagnation in, like, you can almost see as you start to heal, and maybe you've seen this, you can almost see where they got stuck along the way. Because a lot of times, a lot of my family members got stuck as teenagers, where they were hurt, they were deeply hurt, and their emotional maturity kind of stunted at around teenage years, which is when a lot of those traumas happen, and you can interpret them and understand something's going on, and that's where the resentment grows. That's where, and so a lot of times the loving yourself part is what kind of gets you out of that. Is the I am worthy enough of love, worthy enough of being loved, and being able to share with others, and that I will receive the same. That kind of feeling, when you actually believe that, you're able to kind of continue to elevate in that emotional growth and as a person. So like I mentioned, it just kind of stunts you, and I can kind of see, I've been able to see where they got stuck at, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're still kind of in that teenage mindset, and you can almost hear it when they talk, like the anger. You can hear where it's coming from. You can hear an angry teenager. You can hear an angry kid going into young adulthood. So that's kind of been very insightful. That's what's brought my curiosity back, is when I started working on that inner love for myself, where I was like, ooh, then what's going on with this? And it's not about me. When you figure out that it's not about you, that's where I think that's, for me, what has been the most life-changing experience, when it's like, this doesn't say anything about me. And once I can say that, it's like, so why do they do that? Why do they speak that way? Why do they react that way?
Yeah, you really question.
That's where it comes out, that curiosity. And once it does, I think you almost get like, it's this obstacle you slowly like go over. And then once you do, you kind of feel it, and then you just keep moving. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely shifts when you actively heal, right?
Right.
So,
And yeah, that's what brings us, I guess, where we are today. But
yeah.
I'm really curious about what it was for you, like as far as friend groups. Would you say that you had a lot of friends growing up? Would you say that it changed throughout your life? How would you describe your friend groups?
Yeah, it's really funny you asked this because
Mm.
it's very timely. My friends are turning 30 next weekend, so I was actually going through some old photos yesterday, and I dug out some really old photos back with my best friend too, and obviously it made me emotional, but also super grateful. Like, wow, we had so many good times, and then I was looking through all of them over the past more than a decade, right? And I'm like, wow, I've had so many friends, like. Also because I've lived in 3 different countries, right? I just have to say that, like, and I've had different experiences. But it made me also notice, like, you're asking this, like, with your child, like, when I was younger, we were part of the church, right? Which you're familiar with. And so it must be from that capacity then, always going into Sunday school and like every week, like with all these, and because my mum took up so much space, I would have to just, like, play and whatnot. And I think from that, it really led me to, I mean, I'm now leading a community online for people healing, right? And for that support, for that safe space. And then I was really noticing, looking through these photos, like I have always been able to just make people feel seen and heard. And I think that's genuinely why I've always had so many friends, because I just don't judge. Like, it's funny, like a lot of my friends even ask me how I'm so tolerant of all these cultures, and not to mention my exes from different cultures, right? And I think it's just because I'm a curious, genuine being for all of these like different learnings and findings and ways of thinking. And so because I was maybe put in that setting when I was a child, and because, let's say, my sister was 10 years older than me, so I didn't have really that whole siblings around me and stuff, that I was just capable of making friends with like anyone and everyone. And that's maybe also why I'm now a kind of like community leader, if you think about it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and then I am curious. I don't want to touch something that's uncomfortable, so please stop me. I have no problem moving on. I did want to ask about that friend that you had mentioned earlier. Can I ask what exactly how that turned out? Like, where did you guys become friends? How was that relationship like for you?
Yeah, it's a very nice story. So we met when we were 11. And so in England, high school, I think for you is college.
Yeah.
When you're like 11 to 15. And throughout, like, we first met each other in high school, and then we were best friends all the way through. And you know what brought us together? People bullying us. You know that story.
Yeah.
He was gay, and this was like back in 2007. So like it's very rare for people to be out and gay. I mean, I think he was the only one actually in our year that was really out. Like you could tell he was camp, he was gay, and he was proud, and I loved that about him. He shone, and he made everyone laugh. He was the most funniest person ever. But unfortunately, he was the saddest person ever on the inside, and I was the only one that really knew that, because he didn't really have that many friends except for me. And so I was bullied because I was the German one. Again, going back so many years, there wasn't that many foreigners in England at that point, or in our high school. And so because of my last name, I was called Grossmann every day, and Hitler and all that shit. And I think that's also why I've been always so ashamed of my German side, and only coming here in the past 4 years have I really embraced that. Crazy. So yeah, we came together in that sense, very much so, just like ignoring the haters and being our own selves. Like, we were never scared to be ourselves together, and we just grew so much together, and losing him was like losing a part of my soul, because he'd really helped. We've helped each other so much, just be ourselves, and how important that is, right? Like, how many people aren't themselves in our day, like in our society? But no, we didn't give a shit. We were like, we don't care if we're being bullied. We don't care if like people hate us. We are being us, and we're proud. And we would laugh, and we would joke, and yeah. So through that, it was a very like strong foundation. And then when we got a bit like, you know, older, he then started, you know, doing all these drugs and the dark web, is it called? And yeah, going through down all these alleys that I was just like, please be careful and whatnot. And I think that's also, you know, I really like tried my best. And it just kind of didn't get anywhere. And because I could tell it was just like really in it. So that's, I think, probably why it was so painful, because I saw the
yeah. Would you say, was it fair to say that you felt like it was you guys against the world growing up?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it sounds like. And because the reason why I say that is because what you described is a super, what do you call it? I guess not common. Not a common thing where, because when you're younger, you said you were between the ages of 11 and 15, correct? Where that bullying and all that stuff was happening.
Yeah.
During those ages for me, there's a lot of figuring out who you want to be. There's a lot of what's everybody else doing? Do I want to be that? And trying out personalities. Like there's a lot
following
of
the crowd.
Yeah, and then kind of like almost like trying on clothes. Does this fit me? Does this fit me? And so then it's not only courageous, it is extremely scary. Well, it's courageous because it's scary to be whatever it is that you feel that you are in that moment out loud, despite what's going on around you, because that's not the norm. So essentially, you're gonna stand out, and that's always going to come with a burden when you start out that young. So when you say that that's what you guys were like, I picture exactly why people were targeting, is because that is intimidating for other people, and so they just want you to feel how they feel. And during those ages when you don't know who you are the most insecure, you are the most what's the word? Easily influenced by others.
Yeah.
So I completely see what's going on when you say that, and that's why it feels like to me the moment you were describing it, it's us against the world.
Yeah, it's very manufactured.
How do you think, if you don't mind me asking, if you had to guess, if you kind of, I don't know if you thought about it, but when do you think that happened, that downward trend for him?
So when I turned 16, we moved to Germany. For 2 years, I was then doing the college. It's the 2 years in Europe, and I remember that was like literally the worst age to leave your friends. Like, I was so sad, especially when you know who your friends are. You know, at that age, right? It feels like the end of the world. But I went with it. I trusted, and he came to visit me 6 times. And that's how I knew we were best friends. Like, we would write each other letters back in those days when there was no Facebook. Well, there was Facebook, but it was more like,
It was so new.
yeah, right. And we would write letters about how our first days were at college without each other, and like how he's still being himself and I'm still being myself, and we can still do this and rock this. And it was funny, because then I could really see the downward trend, because I wasn't like in person there. I'm not just saying it was because of me. I'm just saying that it was a whole transition for us both. Like, from high school to college is also another, like you were saying before, another layer of all the masks of what you're trying out and who you want to be, right? So I could really tell he didn't know what he was doing. I mean, who does at that age? Come on. And then just kind of figuring out like if he wanted to go to university after that, and I was too. And then I was like, nah, I'm going to travel a bit and go to Spain before I go to university. And then he did, and he went out of it because of his health and stuff. And I think he caused himself a lot of pressure. And so then I returned to England after those 3 years in between to study. And we were still best friends. So then I would see him all the time again. And I felt like, oh, okay, this is good. I'm back here for him. And I could tell he didn't have that many friends because of the drugs too. that he was juggling. And I think it's what you were saying before too, like if you don't love yourself, then that's really all the issues, like that's the root cause. And his self-esteem was just so low. And I was like, it's so crazy, right? Because you see those people on the outside. It's like Robin Williams. He's like the most funniest character in the films, but he was depressed. And I really saw that now in Matty. Like he could light up a room and make anyone laugh. Like, I mean, anyone laugh. And I was the only one that really knew his darkness inside, you know, because he told me and I see it. And I think I'd carried that for him for a long time as well, like really trying, like with my Sunshine State and yeah, spreading it and such. But then when he died, I did see it coming in a way. Like that anticipation a bit, because I saw him like him losing himself a lot. Yeah.
And you are trying to pull as fast as you can because you can see it and trying to keep him afloat, right? And I think like the hardest part, because I've been in those positions before, and I could tell you that as I've gotten older, I feel like I've always kind of been empathetic, but maybe parts of phases in my life made me shut it off where it was maybe a little bit too vulnerable. Okay. So as I got older, I was able to dig more into that empathetic side. I've had a lot of people also reach out to me, and I'm trying to save them. And then there comes a point, like a reality of this isn't within my control, and there's a pretty scary feeling that comes over with that. And a lot of self-blame, and it's like, what could I have done? You know, maybe I could have done something. Fortunately, I haven't experienced any of my close friends, you know, doing any self-harm or anything. So I haven't experienced that, but I've had some calls in the middle of the night, and I've run out and had a chat, and there's that anxiety of like, oh, this one's scary because this might be a problem some point, and I don't know if I can be there all the time. And so there is a lot of self-blame and guilt, and I hope that you don't feel that way.
Thank you. I think I rode that wave for a way too long time. And interestingly enough, I mean, he was going through mental health issues, right, as well, obviously, with full identity as well. And I had a mental breakdown in 2021 with psychosis and depression, went into the clinic for half a year. Now in hindsight, as I believe very truly and fully, you probably do too on the spiritual path, everything does happen for you and for reasons. And now I really know that I was meant to go through that time to really understand the darkness, because I had held it for so long for other people around me, always trying to teach, advise. And now I've gone through it, I'm like, now I have way more practical tools, like the small steps that matter, and not just say, yeah, be grateful, you know, like, so I think I truly then really tapped into like, oh shit, this is really how he felt, like one of the layers that he felt or didn't feel, because it's fucking numb, right, when you're depressed. So yeah, that's been a whole like wave of itself, when you just said about the shame and the guilt that I carried for a long time, not just for him, for my mum though too. So it was only really through therapy in the past years that I was able to shed that part of me and replace it with forgiveness.
Yeah, forgiveness is probably the hardest part, and it's not one act.
It's not a one-time thing. It's a daily act.
No, absolutely. I think that's the part that I wasn't expecting. Yeah. I thought that forgiveness was like okay, what of all these things that I want to forgive? I forgive them, and then done, right? Like that's how I thought it was, and it's really not. It's really not that. It's a daily act, just as everything else. And I think that's why I've been more present later in my life, where I'm able to live in the moment of now and not worry about tomorrow or what I did yesterday, because I lived in the past and in the future most of my life, where I was like thinking about, why did I do this, why did I say this. I spent a lot of time as a kid like being afraid of, because there's a lot of I moved a lot. I lived in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for like 4 years on and off, And I was born in California, and then my parents went to Mexico. We lived there for like 4 years, on and off, because my mom and my dad were having problems. So my mom would leave, take me and my brother, then come back, then leave again. And so then my first language is not English. My first language is Spanish. And so I had to go to bilingual class because I didn't speak English well enough. And there was a lot of back and forth as a kid. So it really did. I really did live in the past and in the future. Like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know how to. What if I don't know how to do this? And or I would think about something in school, and it's like, oh, why did I say that? Just thinking a lot about things that already happened or things that could happen. Basically, things that were out of my control. I was always worried about, and it's just that instability of moving everywhere, just going back and forth, back and forth. So that's where, for me, that feeling of living in the past and the future really came from. So I'm curious for you, what do you feel like you had? I know you mentioned about your friend having to heal from that, but what else do you think? What other challenges did you have that you needed to heal from?
Unsubconsciously, being my mum's therapist since I was a kid.
Ooh.
Which I never really knew, right? And that also, like, as you were just saying, these traits we carry with us and they manifest in different forms. It's definitely why I'm a natural helper, let's say, because I was always there to fix and solve. Fully releasing that when my parents then did break in 2020 in the height of Corona. Great timing.
Wow, yeah.
And having to deal with that face on, because I then got my mum to me in Berlin when I was living there in Berlin, and taking her to everything to help her heal, from cacao ceremonies to my yoga classes and whatnot. I think I lost myself then there for a while, not only giving a lot with my mum then and in my business as a coach, a yoga teacher and a writer, that I did not have anything left in my cup. And it was massive, like all those contributions to my breakdown, because I was just empty. Like I'd given all of my soul and my love and my heart and my compassion, and I hadn't really, you don't really know, do you? Like, no. It's only then after then when you like do go to therapy, you do go through these crises, that, I realized, all the kind of puzzle pieces came together for me, as to also why I'm such a natural helper, which I am not going to be in my relationships anymore either, because I've just come out of a relationship 3 months ago, so that manifested in there as well. So
yeah, but trust and believe that that has been a bad route for me. Let me tell you something. When my parents, actually, that's part of like figuring out the generational chain that my parents followed, that their parents followed, which is it seems as though, right, as I traced it back, there's this common thing that happens in my family where people, when they meet each other, they're trying to fix each other to avoid their own stuff. So they become fixers, and that's my personality. That's what I evolved to be, is a fixer. Okay. And so then they try to fix each other, and they can't, because that comes within you, and self-love breeds healing. So if they don't have that within them, there's nothing you can say to another person that's going to make them love themselves. If they don't believe it, it's not going to happen. And it's something that every generation of my family that I've traced back, that I could trace back, has done the same thing. And so they meet these people, they become fixers for each other, and they think that they're helping each other. And so then they have kids thinking that'll fix it even more. And actually it's, it just adds to the problem. And then they resent each other. And then because they couldn't fix each other, they didn't have control, they mourned that they couldn't have control over the things, and that's where the resentment came from. And so then you have all these kids that have a lot of anxiety and don't know what's going on, and so then it's just this chain, right, that leads to where I'm at, where I want to fix everything because my life was so unstable, and so then I meet a person and I want to fix them and they want to help me, and so then it's this chain, right? And so for me, it just finally became like, oh, I understand what's happening, and so what do I do now? And that's where the healing part has been. The answer for me has been just because you can't make somebody want to be better for themselves.
You just can't change anyone. Full stop.
You can't make them do it. You just can't. Like
you just can't. Only if they want to. But
yes.
You can't change someone for yourself.
No, and you can't start them. Like it won't be like, well, what if I say this thing and I convince them? And it might be true that you do. You might be able to convince them short term. But if they don't believe it in their heart, if they don't believe it that they deserve it, if they don't believe that it's something that that it's their path, they won't do it. At some point they'll walk away from it, and then you'll feel defeated and resentful, and you'll be like, well, I put all this energy into this, and this person ended up just in some way betraying me. And it's really not that. And that's where, if you don't have that dialogue, that inner what does this mean about me? If you're not able to ward off that dialogue of this does not mean anything about me, has nothing to do with me.
Yes,
that's
crucial.
That's when things change, because then you can step back and go, oh, this is about them. Like this is their thing.
Yes.
I can't change that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm so glad you said that. So many people out there need to hear that. Because that self-blame game is the shittest game to play, because you always lose. That should be a quote. But seriously,
we're gonna make that. We'll have to make that a highlight somewhere.
Yeah, right. I'm so glad you brought it up, because you're right. And I like the way you described it as a chain, because it's so true. It just repeats itself. If you don't actively stop, reflect, which you've definitely done, I can really tell as well. Go back, look how, with that curiosity, because I think that's really a big key of our conversation today, which is so key in everything, honestly. And in this part especially, because when you have the curiosity, you're able to put yourself out the picture. And everyone's problems these days is putting themselves too much in the picture of everyone's business, of everyone's childhood, of everyone's trauma. You're not a part of it. I don't know about you, but I've gotten into that victim role in my ex relationship now. And I remember so vividly a moment where I was like, Grace, this is not you. You are not a victim. And I remember snapping myself out of it. This needs.
Interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. Because I remember really just thinking to myself, what is going on in my head? I'm not a victim. Yeah, okay, I'm being made to feel this way. But what you just said is so crucial, because I was able to then be like, hey, this isn't because of me, it's because of you. It was a reflection of him. It was a reflection of everything that he's carrying from his childhood. And what you were just saying was totally my ex. He was always in the past. And I was always trying to pull him to the present, which I freaking did with my best friend and all my other exes.
But that's why you're so upset. That's why it's so frustrating, because
you put so much energy into pulling them back to the present moment, but it's not your duty.
No.
But when you've been that role for all your life since you were a child, maybe, unsubconsciously then like us in a sense, right? Until we hit a point where we're like, this cannot be us anymore. Because it really drains you, doesn't it? And then you notice, you're like, oh, and that space is gone and it's been lifted. Even when I lost my best friend and when I now went through this breakup, space, is opening your heart again. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's why, because I tried so much, and it's not my point to try alone. I think that's really something that you have to learn. Sure, you can try together in a relationship, because it is it's a joint thing, and you should both be in it at the same level, right? But if you notice at one point you're trying too much, like I did, and then I was putting myself in this victim role, and I was like, then you need to step back and reflect, how is this mirroring in all my other relationships and dynamics, right? Because then you see it, like you were just saying, these patterns, they do form chains. And when you're allowed to break yourself out of the chains, because you are allowed and you can, and you are worthy and you deserve to even break out of these chains. And it is possible. Healing is possible. And like you were saying before, it's not just a one-off, forgive myself, that's it. It's totally all these tools every day that that you have joy in. You know, it's not always about, you know, oh, I have to do that again. It's like, no, I'm having joy in it, and bringing that joy back into my life, freeing that space up for me. Because when you do, then it comes more naturally to help others. And that's something I've only really learned in the past 4 years, man. You know, like, I need to top up my cup to help people properly.
If you are carrying other people's weight, you'll always collapse, because you need to learn how to carry your weight first, and then know what you can carry. Yeah, I completely understand. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the lesson here? Because I'm stuck on what you had said about that, like this thing that always keeps repeating itself, and you're just like, why does it always end up this way? And then that's where the question arises for me is, okay, so then what do I need to learn here? Yes. Because obviously I always tell people, when pay attention to the patterns, because the patterns are hints. They're going to be things. Yeah. They're going to be hints to what it is that you're here for, what it is that you're here to work on. Yeah. So when you have those patterns, it's like, oh, okay, so this thing keeps happening over and over again. Okay, you're onto something. Where follow the trail. And once you do, that's the scary part, though, because then once you engage with that, be prepared, because there's a reason why you've avoided it. And a lot of times, it's subconscious. Like nobody really goes out of their way to go, I'm afraid of this, and so therefore I won't follow it. There's a thought in the back of your mind that you might not even know is there or forgot is there. And anytime something comes up that challenges that, and that brings that thought up, that scary thought that you don't want to face, you go down a specific route. And so then you become predictable, because it's like, oh, well, we know what you're going to do next. And that's what happened with my parents, is I was able to go, I know what this person's about to do next. Like, and you can kind of understand that, oh, well, this is the fear coming up. This is the trauma.
And it's out of worry. Yeah.
And so then the self-defense mechanism they've had their entire life reemerges, and then so that's what creates the patterns. So then that's why I always think, if you can find the pattern, you can often find what you're here for. And but it's scary, though. If you're
right, it is scary. But wouldn't you say that it's scary to start with, and then it's fun?
It's actually, here's how I would describe it. And this isn't to discourage anybody. I still think regardless, you should seek that adventure, because it's better than the alternative, which is what you've lived. And if you're having questions about how you've lived, it's for a reason. So that alone, I think, is enough of a reason to attempt it. But for me, when I started the journey, it was scarier and more difficult than I imagined it would be. And but what I had learned was that I was actually more resilient than I thought. And that piece is the most important part. You are far more resilient than you think. Yeah. And you don't know that for sure until you test it. And that's the scary part, right? Because, well, for some people it hasn't gone well. Well, for some people and that's the problem, is you're thinking about other people. You just can't control that, but you can address you. Life is hard. I can't tell you any time where I haven't had a ton of fun until I started to really dig into the scary stuff. Because if you're still living in it, if you haven't faced that monster, so to speak, that's a monster that is in your life forever. And so what are you going to do? Are we going to try to confront it and then figure out how many times we need to come back? Because you can come back. I think that's the part that a lot of times maybe I didn't give myself any credit for, that if I can fail, but I can come back, and then just try until I don't fail anymore. I think that's been the part where I just that part didn't compute, that I would survive failing it, right? Like that I would survive falling a couple times and then I could get back up. I think that was the discovery phase of that scary part, but it's not to discourage anybody. That's why I said, once I confronted that and I realized that I could survive it, that I could survive my biggest fear, then is where I started being able to. And it doesn't mean that from one day to another, I suddenly don't have the fears anymore. That didn't go away. It's still there. I just am able to speak to that. I'm able to go, hey, this is what's going on, because it's a little kid that's still afraid. That goes, ooh, I'm afraid of this. And then you have your older version, your adult version that has gone through that could sit down and go, hey, this is what's going on. We're all right. Let's keep going. You've been here before. You can get through it. And then that kid goes, okay, and then we go. But it's not black and white. Is the thing that I think I would say is it's just it's not, you don't face it and then it's just done. You get better at it and you still face it every day.
But it gets quieter.
It does. Yeah, it does get quieter. And I think that's the thing that surprised me, was that, oh, well, I think you're just done with it. And it's not necessarily that. It's that it gets quieter and you get better at responding to it. That's how I would put it.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it, actually, because it just kind of brings up the factor of repetition. Your brain loves repetition. We're made for repetition. So that's why we thrive off ritual and routines. You know, as a kindergarten teacher, I see it too. Like, that's so important for children to have a routine, and it's still so important, as important for you as an adult, to not just have a 9-to-5 routine, can I just say, have a routine that suits you. Have a routine that makes your soul alive, that feeds your soul, creativity, curiosity, gratitude, peace, connection, solitude. These are also, you know, chapters in my book, because they are the key factors that you just said, it's funny, that don't allow you anymore to just survive, but they invite you to thrive. And that's really the key. Like, you're not just here to survive and be on standby mode. You're here to thrive and be alive. And that's why both of us are on our healing journeys, because now we know the power of feeling alive, of thriving and helping others, right?
Then that responsibility too of like, what if I'm not a good enough role model? That for me was a big problem. Was what if I, so I'll fill you in on this. I've always been the shy one. I've had to grow into, the military helped me grow into leadership, and really it thrusted me into, like, you have to stand up here and say words and people have to believe you. And for me, that was always terrifying, because I doubted myself a lot when I was younger. I questioned whether or not I could. And that's just from childhood, from having an unstable home, of not knowing what was going to happen next. And so that's constantly, I portrayed that in my personality, of the nervousness and, I don't know what's going to happen next. And so then the military really was, for me, was that developmental phase of okay, now things are going to be given, you are going to have decisions and they're going to impact people, and you're going to be held responsible for those decisions. And that is something that I was terrified of, because what if, that's why I was never first to volunteer for anything. When I was a younger Marine, I in my junior years, I would watch how I did, like, I played my role out as a younger brother, where I would watch other people make mistakes and I'd be like, oh, I won't do that. And I would just quietly take notes. But then I didn't have the opportunity anymore when I got thrusted into leadership positions. And it's like, okay, you now are the matter expert. And so you're going to make decisions, and whether or not you know, we have to make a decision. And you're going to take responsibility for what happens after. And once that I got put in those positions over and over again, I had to stumble, not know, and then go through that discomfort of that fear of, like, oh, I'm going to be wrong and everyone's going to look at me and they're going to judge me and they're going to think I'm, like, not worthy enough, and not, all these thoughts come through. And that was the chapter in which I had to discover that, of, like, it's interesting how life throws circumstances at you in which the things that you're afraid of, you attract your fears. And that was an example of me attracting my fear, because I have to confront it. That's why I'm here. I have to confront that, because I'm going to do something else later in my life that's going to require that skill set. And so it's interesting how that happens, because that's where it happened for me, was earlier, where I had to be in positions in which I have to talk. I hate being on camera. I don't know if I ever said this. I hate being on camera. It was generally one of my biggest fears, like, oh, I'm going to say something dumb. I'm going to mess it up and people are going to think I'm dumb. Like, that was something that genuinely crossed my mind. But again, I had to speak in front of people. I had to talk to people that were much older than me, I had to speak to people that had way more experience than me. I had to speak to people and teach them something, you know, like, I had to teach them things. I had to be like, hey, this is how this thing works. And these people have had life experiences beyond my years. And so who am I to teach somebody? And that's where that learning phase happens, where it's like, ages don't necessarily mean maturity. Ages don't necessarily mean knowledge. And so we can all teach each other something. We can all learn something from somebody older, younger. Who cares? We have to be under the impression that we don't know everything yet. And I think that leading my life that way has led me here, right? Like, talking to other people, because I don't know I don't know everything. I don't know what it's like for certain people to live certain lives. And so what can I learn from that? So that was where that came from for me, was that obstacle of you have to speak to people and be confident what you're saying, or at least make it believable.
Well, I tell you what, if you believe what you say, anyone will believe you.
Yeah, that's
really all that matters, isn't it? And it shines through. It's energy. We're all energy, and if you don't believe yourself, then everyone's gonna just be like, "Who is that guy?" So exactly. It's crazy, 100%. Right?
You will get exactly what you fear if you don't confront.
Yeah.
But it's confronting. You have to confront it, and I think like that's what I love about how life plays out, is that the thing. Yes, it's scary, but you're resilient.
Yeah, we're so much stronger than we think we are. Like you said before, I think you really do know that when you, I don't want to say start your healing journey, but when you actively start working on yourself, and everything kind of falls into place with, you know, all of the layers. There's no need for me to go into all the layers, but that awareness, that hyper awareness, right? That vigilance comes with it. That like, I love what you just said, because I've always believed that. I'm a very firm believer that every person in your life has been put in your life for a reason, if not a few reasons. People are putting you into your life for lessons. And I've had that mindset since I was very young. And I think that's why I've been able to soak in so much wisdom, because I just listen and then I'm like, oh, I like that. Or, you know, this non-judgmental kind of openness, which you now have, you know, with this podcast too, of like just soaking in wisdom from other people and sharing your wisdom so that we can all rise to a higher consciousness together. Because isn't that the key? That we all want to rise in a conscious, because we all are in this consciousness together. And if we spread more harmony, health, and healing, then we're spreading it more around us, right? I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing. Like you said, it's not because of us, it's for everyone around us. It's this human collective that's to reach that higher understanding of love and healing. So yeah.
I'm coming into the understanding, and I just want to check in with you. How are we on time? Are you okay on time?
Yeah, sure. It's been an hour now.
Yes. I just want to verify with you. How much time do you think you have?
I'm still down. I feel like we're in conversation. So yeah, I can still do until like.
You're still good? Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure. I always want to be respectful of your time. I think that I've started to view people, or I started to view everybody as parts of me. And so then if you are me, if I am mean to you, I am mean to myself. If I am, and that comes from, that's why that love comes from within. That's how I'm starting to see it. Is it's interesting how when I learn to love myself, I understand people better. I love people better. And so then if that's true, then aren't we just, that's why you said we're all just energy. Aren't we just all connected in that way? That's why I say that spirituality for me, I'm still learning what exactly it all means, but it seems as though we are all connected, because if loving myself makes me love people better, then how are we not connected?
Yeah, it's totally true, because like also I mean, if you just think about it, if you smile at someone and you're kind to them and you give them a compliment, people love compliments, right? Mm-hmm. And it comes from your heart. I'm not saying just give a compliment just because. It's a genuine compliment, because I love giving compliments, and some people in Germany are very taken aback. In England, we're way more like, let's say, open, I would say, in that sense, but that's a cultural thing. And then when I notice, like, when you give someone a compliment, in essence, you're showing them that you appreciate them. You're giving them space to be seen, to be heard, and also as an entity, like you're giving them power. And that's what I thrive off. Like as a yoga teacher as well, I love to just tell like my students these empowering things and win poses, like to smile. And some of them laugh, but I'm like, you need to smile more, you know, you need to open your heart more, because when you love yourself, like you say, you are inviting others essentially to love themselves too. And that's something that I've really learned when we just go back in our conversation. I don't need to save my mom anymore, because the more she sees me loving myself, doing my thing, you know, like really like giving back and doing all my things online too, because now I made her Instagram and she can see, you know, like all of my inspirational quotes that they can help her. But I've really noticed, like, it's not about me actually always trying to save those people and, you know, family and friends alike. It's doing it in action. So my actions shine through more than my words. I mean, isn't that a quote? Like, actions speak louder than words. So essentially, you don't have to save anyone. You save yourself, and in doing that, you save others.
I love that. That is, let's put that up on a wall.
These things come out, and I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, that needs to go up somewhere. We're gonna have to make that like writing. I have writing up on my wall. I'm gonna have to put it up somewhere. That was very nice. I really like that message. Absolutely, I agree with you. That's 100%. By saving yourself, you are saving others. Because like what I like about that is that you in saving yourself, you inspire. I think I think that's what it is that you create that desire, because in other people, something my sister said to me, I think we'll connect with this. My younger sister, I taught her how to drive. And so she told me that I love driving. She told me now that she understands my love for driving. And she said that it was because, she's like, I think it was just because you love driving. And so I saw how much you enjoyed it. And then in the way that you taught it, it was joy. It was enjoy. She enjoyed learning to drive.
It rubbed off on her.
Correct. Yeah. And so that's why that resonates, because it does seem as though that it creates that inspiration in others. Just the energy, the love, watching you love doing something is infectious.
Yes, it is, because it all comes back to energy. Like you choose if you drain others or if you uplift others. It can be really that simple. And you know, it's about now stepping away from that, isn't it? Like, you didn't do that for yourself, teaching your sister to drive. You did it for her. But probably unsubconsciously, you gave her that joy of driving because that's a natural joy for you. Yeah. Right? And then you only realize that when she told you that feedback. And I love that, because like you just said, the more you truly enjoy doing what you do, saying what you say, acting the way, you know, like it really is in actions, daily habits, then it does rub off eventually on people that you would not even expect. Like recently, it was mind-blowing to me, and I was crying tears of joy. Like it was crazy. I'm coming to the end of my kindergarten studies, okay, in Germany. And so I've been in this class for 3 years with people mostly younger than me. I'm 30, but I mean, we had a few that were like older and stuff. But I would say they were all like 18, 19, 20, 21, let's say. And, you know, some of them followed me on Instagram, but I wouldn't really speak to them. Like, they're acquaintances. You know what it's like in your class, right? And I really love this exercise. I think this is actually just a really nice exercise to do with your friends or whenever you want, to put a paper on someone's back and then just like go and like write something down that maybe you wouldn't say to them in person or something that you appreciate about them. And I love the exercise. Our teacher made us do it on the last day, and we would go around and, you know, give each other good wishes. I came home and I thought, okay, I'll read it when I get home, quite curious. And someone wrote, I don't even know who it is, because a few of them follow me, and she's like, your Instagram posts have gotten me through some of the toughest days of my life. You're such a bright light. We need you. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are souls out there that I don't even know I'm touching just by being myself. And
there's something powerful to that, isn't there?
Oh my gosh, it's so powerful. It thrives us, doesn't it? It like pushes us to be ourselves more and to be a shining light.
It makes it worth those dark days, isn't it? Like the feelings of why me, or why is it the victim mentality, right? Like when those moments happen of like, why me? Why is this happening? And then you have those moments where you get your answer. It's interesting that your questions get answered. It's just not always in the way that you thought they'd be answered.
Yeah, that's also a nice way of putting it, actually. Yeah, because the darkness does have to happen for you to really enjoy the light as well, you know, and spread the light, because you can't be such a light for everyone if you don't go through the darkness.
100%. So I have to ask you, because we went off the trails. We went off the
Which trail now?
We went into complete off track of whatever I normally ask. So thank you. I think that's why we're doing this. So I do want to know about you mentioned teaching. I do want to know about what led you down that path. I know we talked a little bit about being an empath, and I'm sure that's what brought it on for you. But let's talk about like career choices. When did you know?
Oh boy, there is no one career choice. Like, let's just put it out there. Like, come on. You cannot just freaking decide your life at 18 and then you're going to be that forever, like in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry. And like, seriously, stop pressuring yourself to choose. Because I've never like even been in that point where I'm like, I'm going to choose now. I've just allowed. The key for me, it was always just following my heart. And wherever it took me, I just like listened and did that. And I've had so many passions. Do you understand that too? Where you're just like, oh, you want to do that, you want to do this. And I think it can be like really overwhelming as a creator too, because then you're like, oh, what do I sell now, or what's mine and what's not for others, and you know, which path do I go down? So the thing is, I did always love working with children. At 18, I went to Spain to be an au pair, and so I'm not going to say it, but like I knew back then that I was a kindergarten teacher, but but then instead I actually studied Spanish, and because I love the culture, I love the language, and studied journalism because I'm a writer as well, and I've always loved writing. Through studying journalism, I obviously didn't want to be a journalist anymore, and kind of found out the hard truth of news and all of that. But it was great. It did definitely like flower my writing to who I am, and yeah, it was funny when you asked, like, so when do you want to be a teacher? Because I always wanted to be a yoga teacher when I found out yoga when I was 18. I loved giving back like this tool to de-stress and to really like listen to your inner wisdom. And then with children, I also did children's yoga and stuff like that, and dabbled in it. And then post breakdown 2021, I was like, okay, what should I do now? Like, I still want to be a coach and a writer, but I don't want to do the business from the ground up again, because I felt like obviously wasn't 100% mentally stable still. And I was like, I've got other passions still. So I was like, okay, kindergarten teacher, yes, let's do this. And through this message, I also want to share, like, it's never too late. Like, I'm 30 and I'm not coming to the end of my other studies. You know, I've already studied, and to be fair, I'm probably still going to study in the next 10 years again, because learning is life and I freaking love learning. And giving that on to others, the learning and the education, that's a gift as well in itself, right? So I think I've always known I'm a natural teacher and a natural leader, let's say, but with kids, it's just, they're just so inspirational. Like, they just bring you back to your inner child, the present moment, the curiosity, you know, the laughter. I love working with them because they just remind me of who we really are, really, without the whole tint of society and culture and growing up. Like, children are who we are in our pure states. And I feel like I'm a kid again, working with kids these past 3 years. Like, I laugh all the time. Well, I've always laughed. I have always been a jolly soul, I'm not going to lie, but like, let me tell you this. I actually wrote this in my self-help book. So there's a study that shows that children laugh 300 times a day and adults only laugh a few times a day. And I remember coming across that like research when writing my self-help book, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then now seeing it in real life with the children, I, like, as I say, I do always laugh. Like, I just find them also so funny. And then one kid, in fact, a few kids have asked me before, Grace, are you an adult? Because you laugh too much to be an adult. Like, they don't take me seriously sometimes, that I'm also like a kindergarten teacher, because I just feel like I'm way on their level. And, you know, it really made me think, like, wow, that's so sad that even children notice.
Yeah.
The energy and the soul is sucked out of us as adults.
I gotta say, you took the question right out of me. You pretty much answered my next question,
Really?
which is what I was about to ask you, and I kind of already knew it, but I just wanted to hear it. Is what do you think teaching kids has taught you? And that's that. Yeah, no, that is exactly how I felt about it. Again, I just needed confirmation, so thank you. That we are kids in our natural state. Like, that's and then in adulthood, because in adulthood, and that's, I think, the rediscovery of realizing that child doesn't go away. Like, I think that's the part that I thought that as adults, like, well, one day I'll understand, one day I'll know the answers, one day I'll know how the world works, and I won't be so confused. And the truth is, I really am not. That hasn't changed. Like, I'm still learning stuff. I still don't know a lot of things. I'm still curious, and that's because, and that's our natural. That's where we are as souls, so to speak. You know, like, that's just the unconditional love, I think, is something we forget how to do, and that's something that we all are capable of and can do. But then somewhere along the way, whether it's through pain and sadness or trauma, whatever you've experienced, where it dulls, where that you quiet that child down. And then I think that that's the adult in healing. That's what I've learned to do, is to like integrate the child back. And that's what becoming a healthy adult involves, is involving your childhood version of yourself, because that never went away. All those versions of you are still present. And I think that is the healing part of that has been part of my healing journey, is to reconnect, because they didn't go away.
I love that for you. So what are your like 3 top things that you do that reconnect you to your inner child daily, let's say? Make you listen to it and like honor it instead of push it away.
I'd be lying to you if I told you that I think of it daily. And I think that that's something that I am still working on. But I will tell you that I do when I think of it, and let's say right now, because this is a good opportunity, are going to be, they're in my background. Like you'll see different versions of me. So it's something I haven't said to anybody, but in my background, I'll change things around my environment. What you don't see right here, when you'll see in like in-person interviews, is you'll see like my collection of figures and the Dragon Ball series. I don't know if you're aware of it. That is a massive chunk of my childhood. And that's why you kind of see them in the background every now and again. But you see different versions of me in my background, and so that'll be the subtle little connections to my younger self. And I still, from time to time, draw, and that's something that a love that I gained when I was a kid. I learned how to draw before I learned how to write. So so drawing has been a part of me since I can remember. So that's something that I do from time to time. It's funny, the way that I reconnect with my childhood self a lot of times is I have a cousin that I'm really close to, that I grew up with, that is literally just my personality in a different body. And so it's just very interesting how certain family members, we call us Lopez variants, because we're all just different versions of similar personalities. And so then we always talk about childhood when we get together, when we hang out, and we're all around the same age. I'm 29. I think she's 32 now, 31, 32. So yeah, we're all around the same age. And so speaking of driving, that's something that came from childhood. My dad used to sit me on his lap, and when I was a kid, he used to sit me on his lap, and I would hold the steering wheel. And in Mexico, I don't know if you know this, you can pretty much drive whenever. So like there isn't any rules as long as you're able to drive. And so nobody's gonna get in trouble. Like if there would be 8-year-olds just driving to like,
no way.
As long as you can drive, like as long as you're able to drive and you don't get in an accident, you're fine. And so then seatbelts aren't a thing over there either. So I got into this habit. Side story. I got into this habit. I reconnected with my dad speaking of childhood. I reconnected with my dad like a year or 2 ago. And I went to visit him where we used to live, and in Mexico. So then when I went to see him, he's driving around and he's taking me places. And so I instinctively grabbed my seatbelt. And so then he goes, "Man, you really grab for that thing every time." And I'm like, "It's just habit." He's like, "Yeah, we don't really, he's like, "I understand. We don't really need that here." So like, that's the thing is just interesting how how it's so different, the rules, and even like little things like that, where you think like, oh, it's just instinct for me. Like it's just second thought, like just second nature. Just put every time I step into a car, just seatbelt on. And that's just because the rules are so strict with that here. And in Mexico, it's not. You got 8-year-olds just driving to wherever they need to go. And that's how it was as a kid. My dad sat me on his lap. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and he would let me hold the steering wheel. And I remember it being really fun. And so I think that that's really where my love for driving started. So I guess when I'm driving,
that's probably why you love it so much.
Yeah. So I guess those were a few, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's lovely that you're inviting them back in,
Yeah, and to openly love, I think, is the part that is the hardest, because a lot of times we love in private, like our things like, oh, I would never want to tell somebody I like this thing because then they're going to make fun of me or whatever, or it's not socially acceptable to like this thing as an adult. That's a lot of times what I've come across. But the open loving, the saying like, man, I love this thing. That's why when in a lot of the episodes, you'll see figures, because that's openly inviting my childhood version of, like, I want the world to see that, because that's what love is that you aren't embarrassed of that kid.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, I took you on a little side trail with that one, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And you also made me think that we both have two cultures. So you Mexican American, me German, English. That would also be another great conversation for us to dive into as children.
Oh, wow.
For our inner child, let's definitely do that, because I would love to grapple with that. But yeah, it's what you were saying also, just like I like the way you said that, inviting love in openly. Like, if you're ashamed of something, then that manifests in itself. But if you invite it in openly, which I was saying before as well, like, compliment freely, don't be scared. Mm-hmm. Like I said it last week to my friend, we did a flea market, and this girl had a really nice outfit on. She's like, I love her outfit. And I'm like, tell her. Because this month in my newsletter, Mindful Moments, I'm also, the motto is stepping out your comfort zone. So I'm like also actively working on in my life. I've always done it anyway. I love it. And so I said to her, like, tell her. And she's like, oh, and I'm like, go on. You're going to make her happy. And then she comes back to me. She's like, oh my gosh, Grace, the smile. She was so happy. And I was like, of course she is. Like, everyone loves a compliment. Like, go compliment more. Like, come on. Don't just think it. Say it.
Openly love. I think it's an invitation. We're really gonna have to do that conversation, actually, because that literally is a like at least another 2-hour conversation about the cultural stuff, because that
easy.
I'll tell you, being Mexican American comes with its challenges.
Oh, I can imagine. So, I mean, I don't know the half of it, but I can imagine.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, for you, just moving around.
Well, yeah, also German English was told I was Hitler every day, so
we'll have to do it in 2 parts. So however you want to do it, it's up to you. We could make it for a different day. However you're doing on time, it's up to you when you want to do that. I'm open to it. Whatever you got in your schedule.
Yeah, let's save that for another day.
You got it. Yeah.
I feel like that's a whole different energy and entity for us to enter into our inner child again with that.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% on board. So I think this is a good time to put a pause on the conversation. I wouldn't say a stop. Yeah, maybe put a pause on it for now. But I did want to leave you with some last questions that I ask all of my guests, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you if there's anything that we can follow you and support you on.
Yeah, sure. So like you guys, I'm on Substack, where I write weekly newsletters. It's called Mindful Moments. We focus on becoming more emotionally intelligent and activating that inner peace through healing. And as I mentioned during our talk, I have also made a community online for people actively on their healing journey that are seeking more support, lasting healthy habits, that collective energy that I was talking about, because it's what I needed when I was in my darkest times, when I felt most alone, even with amazing friends, I'm not going to lie, but some people just get it more that have gone through what we go through, like those challenges, let's say, and mental health issues. So Healing Hearts Hub is open for people to join when they're ready to show up, because it really is about showing up for yourself and for others. And you'll notice that those small steps are really the biggest changes that happen in your life when you dedicate yourself to them. Yeah.
And have you discovered purpose? And if so, what do you think it is? If not, what do you think it might be?
There's not one purpose. But I do believe the biggest purpose of the collective consciousness is to love. If we want to put it in simple terms, what did you say? Openly love? Let's go with that. Let's go with that as the purpose. We openly love and then we openly receive, because the more you're open to give, the more open you are to receive. And I definitely do believe that our biggest purpose here is to love each other and accept each other as well as ourselves.
Absolutely love it. If you could speak to your childhood self, what would you say?
Depends what age.
But who are you connecting with, I guess?
Right now with this conversation with you, yeah, I would probably be like 7 or 8, where I was just always like listening. I would tell her to like, it's okay, you don't have to soak in everyone's energy and put it on yourself. You're also allowed to listen and let go and also love, but you don't have to carry everything as a responsibility for yourself. Yeah.
Grace, thank you so much for making time. This was an amazing conversation, so much so that we have to continue it in another part. So, so many plans for that. If you want to let, does a time like this work on Saturdays for you normally?
Yeah.
Okay. What does the next couple of weeks look like for you? Is it possible within the next couple of weeks?
Now that we have the focus brewing, I think that it would be a really good conversation that I was thinking about when you were telling me about your moving to and fro as well. And I would also be very curious to know how you felt. Because we also touched on it with me a bit. Like, I was very ashamed of my German culture and always like pushed it down. And yeah, only really in the 4 years of living here now have I truly stepped into it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, then we'll chat soon. Thank you so much again for making time for this. I really appreciate it. And we'll be in contact soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.